Africa service of Vatican Radio.
Welcome to our half-hour daily program for Africa.
The headlines today: Pope Benedict XVI announces his resignation effective February the 28th. The Church marks its 21st World of the Sick with a call to help those sick in body or mind, and Pope Benedict at the Angelus calls on the faithful not to be discouraged in proclaiming the gospel. Later in the program, you can hear our feature, the African Synod, and we shall close with Millennium Appointment. I am Festus Tarawali. Pope Benedict XVI on Monday announced that he will resign as Pope effective 8 p.m. on the 28th of February. The Holy Father made the announcement during the ordinary consistory for the canonization of 3 new saints. Philippa Hitchin reports on the reasons behind the Pope's proposed resignation.
Shortly before midday on Monday, Pope Benedict XVI announced his resignation, which will officially take effect at the end of the month at 8 p.m. on February the 28th. As people around the world struggle to come to terms with this surprise announcement, the question on everyone's lips is, why did the Pope take this extremely unusual step of standing down as head of the Catholic Church?
Parte carissimi, non solo un prototipo canonizzazione, ma per condizione bus convocati. Ed siamo dove stessi siamo in magni momenti, perché di vita comunici.
The statement of his resignation, read by the Pope in Latin, states clearly that his advanced age and his declining physical strength, quote, are no longer suited to an adequate exercise of the Petrine ministry.
Ad condizione certa perveni, vires milas, ingravescente etate, vaniam aptas est ad municipitatem eque administrandum.
Pope Benedict also alluded to the possibility of his resignation in the book Light of the World, a series of answers to questions posed to him by German journalist Peter Siewald in 2010. And for the position.
Following the announcement, the director of the press office of the Holy See, Federico Lombardi, gave a press briefing during which he clarified issues regarding the resignation. We have this report by Lydia O'Kane, who followed the press briefing.
As news began to filter out that Pope Benedict XVI had decided to resign, news networks began taking up spaces just opposite St. Peter's Square to relay the latest developments. In a hastily arranged press briefing at the Holy See press office, there was a feeling that the world's journalists had unusually been left without words, and that what was going on was a piece of history. A sense of surprise in the room was echoed by the director of the Holy See press office, Jesuit Father Federico Lombardi, when he took to the podium. He began by saying, the Pope took us by surprise.
È stato ci ha preso un po' di sorpresa.
Looking composed as he spoke and sitting alone under the gold papal insignia of the press office, Father Lombardi said that sickness was not the reason that the Holy Father had decided to step down. It was, as the Pope had said in his declaration, strength of mind and body are necessary, strength which in the last few months has deteriorated in me to the extent that I have had to recognize my incapacity to adequately fulfill the ministry entrusted to me. In answer to a question by a journalist, Father Lombardi said that it was not a decision that the Pope had made on the spur of the moment. It was a courageous decision, a mature choice. And he also underlined that Pope Benedict was composed, conscious that this was an important event in the life of the Church. Pope Benedict is due to leave office on February the 28th at 8 o'clock Rome time. With that in mind, the Holy See Press Office Director preempted some questions. He said that the Holy Father would not participate in the upcoming conclave. Father Lombardi also said that the Pope would go to Castel Gandolfo immediately after leaving office, and following that, he would live in a former cloistered monastery inside the Vatican. I'm Lydia Kane.
Meanwhile, Christopher Wells spoke to medieval historian Dr. Donald Pudlow, Associate Professor of History at Jacksonville State University in Alabama, USA, about the history of papal resignations.
The last pope to resign was almost 600 years ago. It was Pope Gregory XII, who, in a very sacrificial gesture, offered to resign so that the Council of Constance could assume his power and appoint a new pope, and in so doing bring an end to the Great Western Schism. And so that was the last pope who actually resigned. And so this is quite an unprecedented event.
Pope resigning has happened very rarely, although it's possible it's happened very rarely throughout history. Can you tell us a little bit about the other popes who have left the See of Peter?
Well, Celestine V and his advisors were aware that this was an unusual process. And so what they did is they went back through history. They looked at the Liber Pontificalis, and they could go all the way back to Pope St. Pontian in 235, one of the first bishops of Rome, who was arrested and sent to the salt mines. And in order for a successor to be able to be elected in Rome, he resigned his office. And so as early as 235, we have evidence and the possibility of popes resigning for the good of the Church. Several others, they tried to force them to resign. The Byzantines attempted to force Pope Sylveric to resign, but he refused to. But that also demonstrates the possibility of resignation. And then at a rather low point in the Church's history, Pope Benedict IX in the 1030s, he resigned and attempted to require the papacy several times. But according to good reports, he too died in penance at the monastery outside of Rome.
That was Dr. Donald Pudlow, Associate Professor of History at Jacksonville State University in Alabama, speaking to Christopher Wells. Monday, the 11th of February, the feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, is the Church's 21st World Day of the Sick. The day is celebrated each year on the anniversary of the date of the first apparition of Our Lady to St. Bernard.